The mining world of Veltar had been peaceful for over 300 years. Captain Zillaneth stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the purple sunrise paint the crystal cities below in soft light. His people, the Kethrin, had built a good life on this world. They dug rare metals from deep mines and traded them with other planets across the galaxy, but peace was ending today. "Captain, they're coming through the jump gate now," his communications officer said. Her voice shook with fear. Through the main screen, Zillaneth saw them. Black ships that looked more like giant insects than anything built by thinking beings. The Vexi had found them. Zillaneth had heard the stories. Whole star systems going dark. Billions of lives snuffed out in days. The Vexi were not like other species. They did not want territory or resources. They wanted everything dead. "Sound the evacuation alarm," Zillaneth ordered. "Get our people to the shelters." His small defense fleet moved to meet the enemy. 12 beautiful ships made of living crystal, each one a work of art that had taken decades to grow. Against them came hundreds of the Vexi bioships, dripping with acid and bristling with weapons that pulsed like beating hearts. The first battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, only 3 Kethrin ships remained. Zillaneth watched his friends die one by one, their crystal hulls cracking under the alien assault. The Vexi ships seemed to learn from each attack, getting stronger and faster with every moment. "Captain, we cannot win this fight," his tactical officer said. Blood ran down his blue face from a head wound. "They adapt to everything we do." Just like the reports said, Zillaneth knew he was right. The Kethrin were a peaceful people. They'd built their fleet for defense, not for war. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy, against an enemy that wanted to kill everything. Such weapons were useless. "Sir, incoming message from the Planetary Council," the communications officer reported. "They're asking for orders." Zillaneth looked at the main screen. More Vexi ships were pouring through the jump gate. Soon there would be thousands of them. In 3 days, maybe 4, every living thing on Veltar would be dead. He made a decision that would change everything. "Open a channel to all frequencies," he ordered. "Emergency broadcast maximum power." "Sir, that will drain our remaining power cells," his engineer warned. "Do it," Zillaneth said. "Send the message across the entire galaxy. Someone out there might help us." Far across space, on a small blue world called Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter was working late again. The Deep Space Communication Array in Colorado picked up signals from across the galaxy every day. Most were just background noise from stars and gas clouds. Some were old transmissions from long-dead civilizations. But tonight was different. "Lisa, you need to see this," her assistant called out. He was a young man named Ryan who had joined the team 6 months ago. His face was pale as he stared at his computer screen. Lisa walked over and looked at the data. The signal was strong. Much stronger than anything they usually received. It was also clearly artificial. Someone was broadcasting with enormous power from somewhere very far away. "How far?" she asked. "At least 50,000 light years," Ryan said. "And Lisa, I think it's a distress call." For the next 4 hours, Lisa and her team worked to decode the alien transmission. The mathematics were strange, but not impossible to understand. Slowly, word by word, the message became clear. "My name is Captain Zillaneth of the Kethrin Defense Fleet. We are under attack by an enemy that cannot be reasoned with or stopped. They have destroyed 3 star systems in the past month. Our world of Veltar will fall within days. We offer everything we have to any species that can help us. Our mines contain rare elements worth more than most planets. We'll give it all, freely, to whoever can save our people. Please, if anyone receives this message, help us. We are running out of time." Lisa stared at the translation on her screen. First contact with an alien species, and it was a cry for help. She picked up the red phone that connected directly to military command. "This is Dr. Carter at the Deep Space Array. I need to speak with Admiral Morrison immediately. 20 minutes. Later, Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the emergency briefing room at Peterson Space Force Base. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his whole career preparing for the day when Earth would meet alien life. He had never expected it to be like this. "Show me the message again," he said. Lisa played the decoded transmission. The alien voice sounded desperate, even through the computer translation. Reeson listened carefully, making notes on his tablet. "How sure are we that this is real?" he asked. "The signal is definitely artificial," Lisa replied. "The power requirements to broadcast this far are enormous. Whoever sent it has technology far beyond ours." Earth had been building starships for only 50 years. They had faster-than-light travel now, but their fleet was small. Most politicians thought space was too expensive and too dangerous. "What do we know about these Vexi they mentioned?" Morrison asked. "Nothing direct," Lisa said. "But we've detected similar distress calls before. It's always the same pattern. A civilization calls for help, then goes silent forever. We think we've recorded the death cries of at least 20 different species over the past decade." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Earth was not ready for a war with an alien species. But could they ignore a cry for help? And what would happen if these Vexi ran out of other targets? He made his decision. "Get me Captain Alex Knight," he ordered. "Tell him to prepare the UES Vengeance for immediate departure and get the president on the line. We're going to need authorization for this." 3 hours later, Captain Alex Knight stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. The EU's Vengeance was sleek and deadly, packed with the best weapons and shields Earth could build. But Knight knew they were flying into the unknown. "Course plotted for the Veltar system," reported Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez from the navigation station. "Travel time at maximum speed. 72 hours. "Very well," Knight said. "Take us out." The Vengeance's engines roared to life, and Earth's first interstellar rescue mission began. The U's Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Veltar system. Captain Alex Knight immediately knew they were too late to prevent a battle. The space around the mining world was filled with debris from destroyed ships. Pieces of beautiful crystal hulls drifted like broken glass among the stars. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez from her station. "Look at the size of that fleet." Through the main screen, Knight saw them, hundreds of black ships that looked like giant insects surrounded the planet. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of deadly wasps. Even from this distance, Knight could see they were unlike any ships humans had ever built. They seemed to pulse and breathe like living things. "Captain, I'm picking up a weak signal from the planet," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "It's the same alien language from the distress call." "Put it through," Knight ordered. The voice came through scratchy and broken. The computer worked quickly to translate it into English. "Unknown ship, this is Captain Zillaneth. Please identify yourself. Are you here to help us?" Knight took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first conversation with an alien species. "Captain Zillaneth, this is Captain Alex Knight of the Earth ship Vengeance. We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a long pause. When Zillaneth spoke again, his voice sounded amazed. "Earth, we have never heard of your species. You came all this way to help strangers." "That's what we do," Knight replied. "What's your current situation?" "Very bad," Zillaneth said. "The Vexi arrived 3 days ago. We had 47 ships in our defense fleet. Now I have only 6 ships left that can still fight. They will attack the planet's surface tomorrow. We cannot stop them." Knight studied the enemy fleet on his screen. He had expected to find a small raiding force, maybe 20 or 30 ships. Instead, he was looking at an invasion fleet that outnumbered them hundreds to one. "Tell me about these Vexi," Knight said. "How do they fight?" "They're not like other species," Zillaneth replied. "Their ships are alive. They'll learn from every battle. When we use energy weapons, they adapt shields to block them. When we change tactics, they change faster. Every species that has fought them has been destroyed." Commander Ben Sullivan, the ship's chief engineer, looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm scanning their ships now. The readings are incredible. Those aren't machines at all. They're actually living creatures, somehow turned into starships." Colonel Rita Hayes, the Marine commander, studied the tactical display. How do you fight something that adapts to everything you do? She asked. Nobody has figured that out yet. Zilnus's voice came through the speakers. That's why they always win. They fought the Corvani Empire 2 years ago. The Corvani had the best military in the galaxy. 5,000 ships, all destroyed in 1 week. Knight felt a chill. The Corvani had 5,000 ships and still lost. He had 1 ship, but he also had something the other species might not have had. He had humans, and humans had been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. Captain Zilneth. I need to see recordings of your battles with them, Knight said. Everything you have. Sending now, Zilneth replied. The data appeared on the main screen. Knight and his officers watched as the beautiful crystal ships of the Kethron fought. The black bioships of the Vex High. The alien tactics were clean and precise. They moved in formation, fired their weapons in organized patterns, and followed what looked like strict rules of engagement. They fight like knights, Colonel Hayes observed. Very honorable, very predictable. Look. At this, Lieutenant Rodriguez pointed to the screen. Every time the Kethron try a new attack pattern, the Vex High counter it within minutes. But the Kethron keep using the same basic strategies. Knight nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand why every species lost to the Vex High. They all fought the same way? Clean, organized, following military rules that had been developed over centuries of civilized warfare? Commander Sullivan, how long would it take to modify our weapons? Knight asked. Depends on what you want to do with them, Sullivan replied. I want to make them unpredictable, Knight said. Random firing patterns, mixed weapon types, anything that doesn't follow standard military doctrine? Captain, Lieutenant, Rodriguez said carefully, are you suggesting we fight dirty? I'm suggesting we fight like humans, Knight replied. Captain Zeleneth, I need to ask you something. When your people fight wars, do you follow rules? Of course, Zeleneth replied, sounding confused. All civilized species follow the codes of war. We do not target civilians. We do not use cruel weapons. We do not attack enemies who surrender. These are the laws of space combat. Knight looked around at his officers. They were all thinking the same thing. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other, and they had never followed any such codes? Human warfare was brutal, sneaky, and completely unpredictable. Captain Zilneth, has any species ever tried using deception against the Vex High? Knight asked. Fake retreats, false signals, that sort of thing? Another pause? That would be dishonorable, Zilneth said. No civilized species would fight in such a way. Colonel Hayes grinned. Oh, it's a good thing we're not civilized then. Knight made his decision. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to engage an enemy that has destroyed entire civilizations. They've won every battle because they can adapt to any standard military tactic. So we're not going to use standard tactics. We're going to fight like humans have always fought. We're going to be sneaky, brutal, and completely unpredictable. Prepare for combat. Knight opened the channel to Zilneth again. Captain, I need you to gather all your remaining ships. We're going to teach the Vex High something they've never experienced before. What is that? Zilneth asked. They're about to learn what happens when you fight a species that has been perfecting warfare for 10,000 years, Knight replied. And we didn't have the luxury of fighting honorably. We had to learn every dirty trick just to survive. Oh. The planet below, Captain Zilneth looked up at the stars where the small human ship waited. He had no idea what these Earth creatures were planning. But something in the human captain's voice gave him hope for the first time in days. The Vex High had never lost a battle. But they had also never fought humans before. Tomorrow would be very interesting. The battle began at dawn on the 4th day. Captain Knight positioned the UES Vengeance alongside the 6 remaining Kethran ships. The crystal vessels looked beautiful but fragile next to the human warship's dark gray hull. Far ahead of them, the Vex High swarm began to move. They're coming in the same formation as always, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. 3 waves with the biggest ships in the center. Perfect, Knight said. They expect us to meet them head on, just like everyone else has done. Colonel Hayes, are your Marines ready? Locked and loaded, sir, Hayes replied from the Marine Bay. Though I still think this plan is crazy. The best plans usually are, Knight said with a smile. Commander Sullivan, status on our special modifications. All weapon systems have been rewired, Sullivan reported. Random firing patterns are programmed in. And sir, I've never built anything this chaotic in my life. It goes against everything they taught us in engineering school. Knight opened a channel to Captain Zillaneth.
Are your ships ready?
As ready as we can be, the alien captain replied.
Right.
But I must tell you, your battle plan makes no sense too. Us. You want us to run away when the enemy approaches? Trust me, Knight said. Just follow our lead and do exactly what we do, even if it seems wrong. The Vex High bioships came closer. Through the main screen, Knight could see them clearly now. They really did look like giant insects, with holes that pulsed like beating hearts. Some had tentacles that writhed in space. Others sprouted spikes that dripped with acid. They were the most terrifying ships Knight had ever seen. Sir, they're scanning us, reported Lieutenant Park, trying to analyze our weapons and defenses. Let them look, Knight said. They're about to get a very big surprise. All ships, begin standard attack formation. The human and Kethran ships moved forward to meet the enemy. The Vex High bioships spread out, preparing to surround them just like they had done in every previous battle. Their tactics were perfect, tested against dozens of other species. Fire, Knight ordered. The Vengeance opened up with its main guns. Energy beams lanced out toward the nearest bioships. The Kethron vessels joined in, their crystal weapons firing brilliant streams of light. For a moment, it looked like a normal space battle, then Knight's modifications kicked in. The human weapons suddenly changed. Instead of steady beams, they began firing in random bursts. Some shots went wide on purpose. Others changed direction in mid-flight. Targeting systems started switching between different enemy ships every few seconds. What are they doing? One of the Kethran officers asked over the radio. Their weapons are malfunctioning. No, Zillaneth replied, beginning to understand. They're being unpredictable. The Vex High bioships tried to adapt to the new attack patterns, but every time they began to change their defenses, the human weapons changed again. Knight had programmed 50 different firing modes into his systems, and the computer switched between them randomly. Phase 2, Knight announced. All ships, begin retreat. The human and Kethron ships suddenly turned around and started flying away from the enemy. The Vex High swarm paused, confused. In all their battles, no species had ever retreated this. Early in the fight, sir, they're following us, Rodriguez reported. Good night, said. Take us into the asteroid field, just like we planned. The Vengeance led the small fleet into the belt of rocks that surrounded Veltar. The asteroids were huge, some as big as cities. They created a maze of hiding places and obstacles. The Vex High followed, still confident they would win. Commander Sullivan, Knight ordered. Hidden throughout the asteroid field, small devices began to activate. Sullivan had spent the past 12 hours planting cloaked mines on hundreds of asteroids. The devices were too small for the Vex High to detect, but they packed enough explosive power to crack a mountain. Colonel Hayes, you're up, Knight said. From launch bays throughout the asteroid field, small shuttles emerged. They had been hidden there since the night before, waiting for this moment. Each shuttle carried a team of human Marines wearing full combat armor. The Vex High bioships were still trying to chase the retreating fleet when the shuttles attacked. But the Marines didn't try to fight the alien ships. Instead, they landed on them. This is Hayes. The colonel's voice came over the radio. We're on the hull of the first bioship. These things are definitely alive. I can feel it breathing under my feet. The Vex High had never experienced boarding actions before. Their bioships had no defenses against enemies cutting through their hulls from the outside. The Marines used plasma torches to burn through the living metal, creating holes they could climb through. We're inside, Hayes reported. And it's really gross in here. The walls are bleeding. The Marines moved through the bioships like a virus, planting explosive charges on vital systems. The Vex High tried to stop them, but their ship creatures had no way to fight enemies inside there. own bodies. "Sir, the bioships are acting strange," Rodriguez reported. "They're moving erratically." Knight could see it on the tactical display. The Vexi formation was breaking apart as the boarded ships began to thrash around like wounded animals. The hive mind was receiving confusing signals from the infected vessels. "Time for Phase 3, Knight announced. "All ships implement Protocol Chaos." Lieutenant Park activated the Vengeance's most unusual weapon system. It wasn't a laser or a missile. It was Earth's music library. Suddenly, the space around Veltar filled with sound. Heavy metal music, classical symphonies, rock and roll, and every other type of music humans had ever created blasted from the Vengeance's speakers at maximum volume. Mixed with the music were human voices, screaming battle cries in dozens of different languages. The effect on the Vexi was immediate and devastating. Their hive mind, which had evolved to process clean, organized thoughts, couldn't handle the chaos of human emotion and creativity. The bioships began flying in circles, crashing into each other, completely unable to function. "What is that horrible noise?"
Captain,
Zeleneth asked over the radio.
that's humanity.
Dite replied.
10,000 years of art, music, and barely.
Controlled violence all mixed together. The mines hidden throughout the asteroid field detonated all at once. Hundreds of explosions lit up space like a fireworks display. Several bioships were caught in the blasts and torn apart. Others were hit by flying chunks of rock. Colonel Hayes and her Marines triggered their charges from inside the boarded ships. 12 of the largest bioships exploded from within. Their living holes split open like rotten fruit. For the first time in their species' history, the Vexi swarm was in complete chaos. Ships collided with asteroids. Others fled in panic. The perfect formation that had destroyed so many civilizations was falling apart. "Sir," Rodriguez reported, her voice filled with amazement. "They're retreating. The Vexi are actually running away." Knight watched the alien swarm flee toward the edge of the system. Half their ships were destroyed or damaged. The survivors were broadcasting what sounded like screams of terror. "Captain Zeleneth," Knight said, "I think we just taught the Vexi something new." "What is that?" the alien captain asked. Fear Knight replied, "They just learned what it feels like to be afraid." The battle was far from over, but for the first time in galactic history, someone had made the Vexi retreat. And it had taken humanity's most chaotic, unpredictable, and brutal tactics to do it. The Vexi swarm regrouped at the edge of the Veltar system. Captain Knight watched them on his screen, counting their remaining ships. They had lost almost half their fleet in the first battle, but hundreds of bioships still remained. Now, they were angry. "Sir, they're changing formation," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. "I've never seen them move like this before." The bioships were spreading out in a new pattern, one that looked random and chaotic. Knight realized with growing concern that the Vexi were trying to copy human tactics. They were learning too. "Be unpredictable." Captain Knight, Zeleness's voice, came over the radio. "They're adapting to your methods." "What do we do now?" "We do what humans have always done when the enemy adapts," Knight replied. "We adapt faster." Commander Sullivan looked up from his engineering station. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy buildups. In their bioships, they're doing something to their weapon systems." On the main screen, the Vexi fleet began to move again. But this time they didn't advance in their usual perfect formation. Instead, they came at the human and Kethrin ships from 12 different directions at once. Their movements wild and unpredictable. "They're trying to out-chaos us," Colonel Hayes observed from the Marine deck. "I have to admit, that's pretty smart." Knight studied the approaching enemy fleet. The Vexi had learned from their defeat, but they had made one critical mistake. They thought chaos was just about moving randomly. They didn't understand that human warfare wasn't just chaotic, it was controlled chaos with a purpose behind. All ships implement Plan Delta," Knight announced. "Time to show them the difference between random movement and tactical deception." The Vengeance and the Kethrin ships suddenly split apart, each one flying in a different direction. To the Vexi, it looked like the defenders were panicking and scattering. The bioships immediately gave chase, trying to pick off the isolated vessels. But Knight had planned this separation carefully. Each ship was leading a group of Vexi toward a specific location where the other defenders waited in ambush, As the bioships spread out to chase their targets, they walked right into a series of traps. Alpha Team, spring the trap. Knight ordered. 3 Kethran ships that had been hiding behind a large asteroid suddenly appeared and opened fire on a group of pursuing bioships. The Vexi, focused on chasing what they thought was a fleeing enemy, were caught completely off guard. Beta Team, your turn, Knight called out. The same thing happened on the other side of the battlefield. 2 more Kethron ships emerged from hiding and attacked another group of scattered bioships. The Vexi were learning to be chaotic, but they hadn't learned to be suspicious. Knight brought the vengeance around in a wide circle, coming up behind the largest group of bioships. Commander Sullivan, activate the virus torpedoes. Virus torpedoes ready, sir, Sullivan replied. I still can't believe we're firing computer viruses at living ships. If it works, it works, Knight said. Fire. The vengeance launched a spread of special missiles. They looked like normal torpedoes, but instead of explosives, they carried rapidly evolving computer programs designed to infect biological systems. When they hit the bioships, the viruses began attacking the living computers. That controlled the vessels. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The infected bioships began writhing in space like dying animals. Their weapons fired randomly in all directions. Some of them even started attacking other Vex-High ships, unable to tell friend from enemy. Sir, the virus is spreading, Sullivan reported excitedly. It's jumping from ship to ship through their communication links. The Vexi hive mind, which had always been their greatest strength, was now working against them. The virus spread through their mental network like a plague, infecting more and more bioships every second. Captain Zillaness's voice came over the radio, filled with amazement. How did you know that would work? I didn't, Knight admitted. But humans have been fighting computer viruses for centuries. We know how to make them spread and evolve. We just never tried it on living computers before. Colonel Hayes led another boarding operation, her Marines attacking the virus-weakened bioships. But this time, the Marines carried something new. Flamethrowers, Hayes tonight. The colonel's voice crackled over the radio. These things really don't like fire.
Hey!
The whole ship is screaming. The Marines moved through the bioships like an infection, burning everything they touched. The living vessels tried to heal themselves, but human fire was something they had never encountered before. Their regeneration systems couldn't cope with the sustained chemical burning. Lieutenant Park activated the Vengeance's psychological warfare system again. But this time, she had a new addition to the playlist. Mixed with the human music were recordings of the bioships screaming as they died. The sound of their own kind in pain drove the remaining Vex-High into a frenzy of panic. They're breaking formation completely, Rodriguez reported. Some of them are attacking each other. Knight watched as the once perfect Vex-High swarm tore itself apart. The virus continued to spread, turning bioships into mindless killers that attacked anything that moved. The psychological warfare had shattered their hive mind coordination. The boarding parties were burning ships from the inside out. All ships press the attack, Knight ordered. Don't give them time to recover. The Kethron vessels, inspired by the human tactics, began using deception for the first time in their species' history. They sent false surrender signals, then attacked when the bioships approached. They broadcast fake distress calls to lure enemies into ambushes. Captain Zillaneth discovered that his people were actually quite good at being sneaky when they tried. One by one, the Vex-High bioships fell. Some were destroyed by weapons fire. Others were consumed by the spreading virus. Many simply fled the battlefield, their crews too terrified to continue fighting. The largest bioship, obviously the command vessel, tried to escape toward the jump gate. Knight had anticipated this. Hidden mines that Sullivan had planted around the gate weeks ago suddenly activated. The massive explosion lit up space like a small sun. When the light faded, the Vexi command ship was gone. With it went the central intelligence that coordinated the entire swarm. The remaining bioships are fleeing the system, Rodriguez reported. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. What are they saying? Knight asked. Lieutenant Park worked quickly to translate the alien signals. It's hard to make out, but I think they're warning other Vexi fleets to stay away from this system. They're calling us. ... Triple quotes. She paused, checking her translation. They're calling us the Death Singers who fight without honor. Knight smiled grimly. I can live with that title. The battle was won, but Knight knew this was just the beginning. Word would spread throughout the galaxy that someone had finally defeated the Vexi. Earth had announced itself to the universe in the most dramatic way possible as the species you called when you needed someone to fight dirty and win. The space around Veltar was quiet for the first time in days. Broken pieces of Vex-High bioships drifted among the asteroids like the remains of a nightmare. Captain Knight stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the last enemy ships disappear into the jump gate. They were running home to tell others about the species that had made them afraid. Final casualty report, sir, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. We lost a Kethran ships, but the crews were rescued. Took minor damage to the outer hull. No human casualties. Knight nodded. They had been incredibly lucky. Against an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations, they had won with almost no losses. Oh, but he knew the real battle was just beginning. Captain Knight, came Zillaneth's voice over the radio. My people wish to thank you. You have saved our world and our lives. But I must ask you something that troubles me. Go ahead, Knight replied. Your methods of warfare. They are so different from what we consider civilized. Deception, the cruelty, the complete disregard for the rules of combat. How can a species that fights so brutally also be willing to travel across the galaxy to help strangers? Knight thought about the question for a long moment. It was something he had wondered about himself. Captain Zillaneth, humans learned to fight the way we do because we had to. For thousands of years, we were our own worst enemy. We developed these tactics fighting each other. But maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. I do not understand, Zillaneth said. Think about it, Knight explained. Every other species in the galaxy fights the same way. You follow rules, you act honorably, you fight fairly. That's why the Vex-High always win. They can predict what you'll do because you all do the same things. But humans never had the luxury of fighting fairly. We had to learn every dirty trick, just to survive. On the planet below, the crystal cities of Veltar were beginning to light up again. The Kethron people were coming out of their shelters, looking up at the stars where their saviors waited. They were alive because creatures from a distant world had chosen to help them. Commander Sullivan approached Knight with a datapad. Sir, we're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Dozens of them. Knight looked at the pad. The messages were coming from star systems hundreds of light years away. Different species, different languages, but all saying the same thing. They had heard about the victory at Veltar. They needed help too, Captain Lieutenant Park said from her station. Admiral Morrison is calling from Earth. Priority channel. Knight took the call. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen, and he looked tired but pleased. Captain Knight, congratulations on a job well done. The President wants to give you and your crew medals. Thank you, sir, Knight replied. But I think we have a bigger problem now, Admiral Morrison said. We're receiving distress calls faster than we can count them. It seems like half the galaxy has problems they can't solve on their own. Dr. Lisa Carter appeared beside the Admiral. On the screen, Alex, we've identified at least 30 different species asking for help. Pirates, slavers, other predator races like the Vexi. It looks like the galaxy has been living in fear for a very long time. Knight understood what this meant. Earth had just become the galaxy's unofficial military force. Every species that couldn't defend itself would be calling for human help. It was both an opportunity and a terrible responsibility. Sir, what are our orders? Knight asked. That's what we're trying to figure out, Morrison replied. The politicians are arguing about it. Some want to ignore the calls and focus on Earth's problems. Others think this is our chance to become a major power in galactic politics. Captain Zelenis's voice came over the radio again. Captain Knight, I am sorry to interrupt, but there is something you should know. I have been in contact with other Kethron colonies. Word of your victory is spreading faster than light through the galactic communication network. What are they saying? Knight asked. They are calling Earth a species that fights like demons but saves like angels, Zillaneth replied. Some are afraid of you. Others are asking how they can contact you for help. But all of them know that the galaxy has changed today. Colonel Hayes joined Knight on the bridge. Her armor was still scorched from the boarding actions, but she was smiling. Sir, my Marines are ready for whatever comes next. After fighting living ships, I think we can handle anything. Knight looked around at his crew. They were tired but proud. They had done something no other species had managed to do. They had beaten the Vex High at their own game by refusing to play by the rules. Admiral Morrison, Knight said, I think the politicians are missing the point. This isn't about Earth becoming a galactic power. It's about doing what's right. Explain, Morrison said. Look at these distress calls, Knight continued. There are species out there being enslaved, planets being destroyed, civilizations dying because they can't defend themselves. We have the ability to help them. Doesn't that mean we should? Dr. Carter nodded. Alex is right. We made first contact by answering a cry for help. Maybe that's what Earth's role should be in the galaxy. Not conquerors or politicians, but protectors.
Admiral.
Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Captain Knight, set course for the nearest distress signal. It looks like Earth is about to become very busy. Knight turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral? Lieutenant Rodriguez, plot a course for the next crisis. Commander Sullivan, make sure all our unconventional weapons are ready. Colonel Hayes, prepare your Marines for another impossible mission. Where are we going, sir? Rodriguez asked. Knight looked at the list of distress calls on his screen. The next one came from a system where an entire species was being held as slaves by something called the Tornok Empire. It would be another impossible fight against overwhelming odds. We're going to show the galaxy what humans do best, Knight said. We're going to fight dirty, break all the rules, and save people who can't save themselves. The Use Vengeance turned toward the jump gate, ready for whatever came next. Behind them, the grateful people of Veltar watched their protectors leave to help other worlds in need. Earth had found its place in the galaxy. They weren't diplomats or traders or explorers. They were the species other civilizations called, when they needed someone willing to do whatever it took to win, they were the galaxy's most lethal force. They used that power to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The stars were full of species in trouble. Humanity was just getting started.